I have to admit that until recently, I wasn't sure that this was going to be possible. But for the very first time, I'm beginning to see a possibility of machines developing a kind of intelligence that we only dreamed of occurring in organic neural networks. I think when you put all of these things together, we're going to get something that is so much bigger than the sum of its parts. I'm Divya Chander. I'm an anesthesiologist, a neuroscientist, a consciousness hacker, and recently founder and CEO of a company that uses brain-computer interfaces to extend cognitive longevity. Neurotechnology at its most basic is the ability to either read from the brain, write to the brain, or create something outside the brain that in some way mimics it. The kinds of neurotechnology that get a lot of press are the ones that companies like Neuralink are putting forward. They can read these electrical signals with really, really high fidelity. And the interpretation, by the way, that's where the back end of artificial intelligence comes in. How do we make sense of these signals? And ultimately, if we were to implant or augment ourselves with things like bionics or new sense organs, then the brain has also got to rewire and adapt itself to take in new streams of data. And on the other side of it, we can actually deliver energy to the brain, sometimes using electrodes to rewrite or rewire the underlying circuits. We do this for depression and other mental health disorders, but we can actually do things like increase neural plasticity. That's the ability to learn new things and to acquire new information. And you can imagine that if I do that for a patient who's had a stroke or Alzheimer's, I am helping to bring them back to a baseline. But if you or I were to do that and we were at our cognitive baseline, all of these technologies would essentially start to enhance us or basically augment what we were. And neurotech just really, it encompasses that entire read from, write to, or create outside of something that looks like us. The idea of a technological singularity was, could we get technologies that were sufficiently advanced in multiple fields that would enable something artificial to exceed first the intelligence of something simple like the brain of an organic mouse, but then increasingly be able to get us to where human intelligence was and then beyond. I have to admit that until recently, I wasn't sure that this was going to be possible. I wasn't sure that a lot of Ray's predictions that these things might start happening in the 2030s made a lot of sense based on what I knew as a neuroscientist. But for the very first time, I'm beginning to see a possibility of machines developing a kind of intelligence that we only dreamed of occurring in organic neural networks. Part of this has been supported by this development of generative AI. It's not the generative AI, which is really right now just a probabilistic model. It's the fact that we can use some of the underlying models like attentional or transformer models to really go inside and look at what the brain's signals are saying. And if we can read the brain with such high fidelity and interpret those signals and turn them into something meaningful in the real world, this is something that our machines can now become endowed with. It's the fact that we have multiple technological streams, I think, that are coming together that are making me actually feel like we might be able to achieve some kind of a technological singularity. On one hand, you have the evolution of algorithms and attentional models computing, like for instance, neuromorphic computing. We have the ability now in silico or in hybrid systems to have something that can actually approximate the efficiency with which organic brains actually compute and learn about the world. Now we have a whole other stream of synthetic biology where we can actually harness the power of biology to build things from the ground up or to go in and muck with things that are already there. So we can turn into these kinds of engineers to create new vistas that weren't possible before. And now we can even use artificial intelligence to help us predict what those biological building blocks should look like. I think when you put all of these things together, we're going to get something that is so much bigger than the sum of its parts. I cannot wait to see all of you at our session and hope you'll join us and explore what the future of human consciousness and augmentation looks like.